Set, Mary Ellen.
Welcome, everyone. Hi, this is Mary Ellen Hess, and just welcoming you to our WINiT in 45 session. And this topic today is WINiT at work and at home. So I'm really excited to have my partner in crime here today with me, Patty Huska, who will introduce herself here in just a second. But just a reminder on what we're going to cover today is just really giving some advice and wisdom that we've realized from our careers and as being working moms, and how we took on senior roles and juggled that, because we certainly know that that's a challenge. And so we're going to share some tips today on how to progress your career as a working mom, and hopefully you'll walk away with some kind of tactical lessons learned from the two of us. So with that, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. And again, I'm Mary Ellen Hess, and I'm EVP of Business Development for CTM here in North America. And I also serve on the WINiT by GBTA Strategic Advisory Board, and was excited yesterday to be announced as a glass breaker, which Patty is also. So I'll let Patty introduce herself.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Patty Huska. I'm the head of HR for MXGBT. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mary Ellen over the years, so this is going to be actually a lot of fun for the both of us. Similar to Mary Ellen, I'm on the WINiT Strategic Advisory Board. I'm also going to be leading one of the Glassbreaker initiatives, and I'm just delighted to be here.
Great. Well, what we've done is we've prepared a few some questions to kind of create an exchange between the two of us, because as we said, we both have a lot to share. So what we did is came up with a series of questions we'll run through, and we do have the chat open that we'll cover off at the end of our session. So if any questions come to mind during the session, feel free to pop those in the chat and we'll cover those off at the end. So I think Patty's going to go ahead and kick us off with kind of our first discussion point.
Terrific. Thank you. So let's just go back a little bit in time, Mary Ellen, and can you just tell us a little bit about where were you in your career when you first started juggling being a mom and taking on a busy career?
Well, it was it was a while ago, so I won't totally date myself and name the year, but it was definitely a while ago. But I was actually a division president with BCD Travel, and we were going through a series of acquisitions. I at that time had about 5,000 employees working for me, and we just I was now a new mom. And really had my son Dylan, who you're going to hear a lot about today. But it was just kind of an incredible time actually in my career to have a baby. But it was an incredible time of growth. So we were just launching in the U.S. and had done a number of acquisitions, BTI, Hoffman Travel, TQ3. It was an incredible time of growth. So definitely I found it a challenge juggling all that as I was taking on more and more responsibility.
Did you ever have a time that you kind of doubted or wonder, can I do it all?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just to be very real, during that time, I actually went through a divorce. So that was definitely a curveball I didn't expect. So now I found myself in this, being a leader of one of the largest growing TMCs at that time, now a single mom. So it was for sure a time where I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to pull this off? But I was grateful that the culture of the organization at that time was very supportive of family, and we'll talk more about that as we go through this. But it's important. I mean, that's one of the first things I guess I'll say is it's important that you're in a culture that's supportive of working moms and families. And so Dylan actually went with me to he went everywhere with me. I mean, I ended up taking him because we're talking like now he's the age between ages 1 and 5. And, he went to we were TMC of the Olympic Games back then. He went to the Olympics. He would go on our annual partner retreats, which we had in France. He actually, with Hoffman Travel at that time, we had entertainment group anyway, long story, but he actually went to a few red carpet events out in LA. He went skiing. He learned to ski actually through some customer events. I can't tell you how many town halls I took him to. And it's funny because now even people today, like even in the last 24 hours, have commented to me, like they remember those times where I was, a very pregnant and we were launching a call center in Kansas City. And there I was, it was my last trip and we were going to open that center. I was, there was nothing going to stop us from opening that center because I had to with my coming up on my 9 months. So anyway, that customer and those employees, still we talk about that time. So I did manage to juggle it, but there's no doubt that I had my doubts.
Yeah, that's amazing. So your colleagues have had the privilege of watching your son grow up.
Yeah, they have, and it's remembering back on it. It was interesting as I prepared for this. It was I think the thing about it that is when I learned, because I did have those doubts, and I let that guilt creep in my mind of I wasn't there for him maybe all the time, or was I not there all the time for my team because I had a child and to care for. But I think I guess I finally figured out, well, I definitely found my faith, which kept me anchored, right, on what was most important. And no doubt that was my family. But I think showing vulnerability as a leader actually made me more effective as a leader. And it ended up resonating with those that worked with me and as a team, my peers. And I think that it made me, I was transparent and authentic. And so I think that's one thing that is nice now with the situation we all are finding ourselves in now, working from home. We have kids and dogs and things in our lives, and it feels like it does make things more real and okay. So I think that was definitely, one of the things that I realized and I learned that that it was okay to and be transparent with what I was juggling, and it made me real to my team.
There's a lot of truth in that. I think we could probably all collectively do a 3-day session on
Yeah.
the importance of just being authentic and letting people know it's okay to have a bad day and we're not perfect. Certainly the folks that I work with know sort of the chaos of my life. But when
I know you have a lot of things to say probably in your time about, how was effective time management, how did that play a role in you pulling off your, the role that you have a big role, and I'm sure you've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so first on time, since you asked specifically on time management, when I think about one of the things in particular, so I have two children, Tommy and Kathleen, and when I first then, well, it was always kind of my personality to begin with, to try to push as much in and leave for the airport at the last possible minute, you're going to catch the flight, and always all this pressure. So I think on the time management piece, I have learned, whether I'm working mom or not, of just being realistic on what you can fit into a day. Because if not, when I think about a lot of the stress and pressure that I've had through my career, a lot of it I've kind of put on myself, even more so than other people. So just to be a little bit smarter about giving time, and I know this might sound silly, but making sure you actually have enough time to get to the Little League game or the PTA conference, so that you're not always feeling like you're on sort of the hamster wheel, if you will. And then it's important to just find some time to actually take a breath and then try to be present. I think the other thing that I found on time management, and again, working mom or not, has been, and it's been hard for me to do, but to really focus on like the big ticket items first in a day, and not, because sometimes it's easy. And I think sometimes it's like avoidance of the hard things, that you can start ticking off the little things, but you could fill the whole day on the little things and then get to the end of the day, realize I haven't actually, don't have anything like tangible to day that I've accomplished. And then I realized I haven't even planned what's going to happen in the rest of my life for the day. So trying to be more focused on that. And in the pandemic, I mean, I've always been virtual. Well, I've been virtual since I was pregnant with my oldest, but and he's 17 years old now, but I was always traveling more. So since I've been home more, I'm traveling today, but I put like a big whiteboard in my home office and I write down sort of my priorities and I check them off, and it feels good to see the ones that were checked off. But it's just some of those things on discipline.
Those are all really good. Those are really good points. Definitely. I think too, managing, we were just talking about it earlier before we got on the webinar about managing notifications. I went to we had a speaker last week at one of our manager meetings, and talking about exactly what you said about the priorities, setting your 3 priorities for the day, and also just managing your notifications, because it's overwhelming. But obviously when one of your children are notifying you, that takes top priority. But you can lose focus of, what you want to get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, and I'm sure others would want to hear, do you think there were times you were passed over for roles or projects because you couldn't put the hours or travel in as much as your coworkers who maybe weren't dealing with the demands of parenting?
Yeah, so I was definitely passed over for promotions earlier in my career, but when I think back on it, it was a couple of things. There was at one point back, I grew up in American Express. It was a wonderful company, but I came through the Thomas Cook, for those of you who've been in the travel industry for a long time. And it was important to me to stay in Boston because it was going to be the support system for me with a fantastic extended family there. But there just wasn't a lot of interest in having virtual people for corporate jobs. And I think one of the things when I look back that I used to always do is people would talk to me about a role and I would lead with, but I'm in Boston and like I'm going to be virtual. And sometimes I would almost make it an issue when it probably didn't need to be an issue. So it took a bit longer for that. I think actually I was the first virtual person in HR in Amex way back when. So that was an issue. Yeah, exactly. So that was an issue for me, but I wasn't going to compromise on it because I also had a job that required travel, and having a support system was great. But then later in my career, it took a bit longer. I have absolutely no regrets, but positions I didn't get were times when I didn't speak up to say I wanted them. So there was a lot of times I was always very, and I still am very vocal in the fact of like how much I love my job, I love my family. There was always just very much, I think, a perception, also the reality that I was very happy doing what I'm doing. And so that sometimes I think if you want that next step, you have to like build sort of those allies and sponsors, but you also need to be prepared to say the words and say you want it.
Right. And ask for it. That's a very good point.
Yeah, so that took a little bit longer, but everything worked out exactly.
It did.
I wanted it to. So probably like along those lines, as you think about in your career, when you moved into more senior roles, I mean, you mentioned you had 5,000 people working for you. How did you find the dynamic changed when you were, the more senior you got, and how you balanced the work and life aspects?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because when you were talking about making time to get to the soccer field or the volleyball field or whatever, I swear my son is scarred to this day with me racing him to school every morning. He still talks about, he's 25 now. 26, sorry, I'm getting it wrong. He's 26 now. And he talks about, Mom, oh my gosh, because, I get in the car with him and tell him, slow down. He's like, are you kidding me? You like, practically killed me every day getting me to school. So anyway, I guess I finally started realizing, well, there was a time, I've been remarried now since 2010. And back then Dylan was just going to middle school. And I was racing him to school every day and realizing, okay, this is crazy. Like I've got to dial back. I don't want to miss the moments on the soccer field. Oh, it's going to be hard not to get emotional saying that. And so I had to dial back. I knew I had to step down, and it's a tricky thing to do. I mean, I think that's one of the things I learned is a senior, once you're in a very top senior role as the executive committee at BCD, and I wanted to step down because, I wanted to be home more and just present more and not miss those moments. There were some of the leaders that at that time, now leadership had changed. So, they were questioning like, okay, you're getting married. Why don't you just want to quit working? Like go home and be a mom, which I get, but I still felt like I had a lot to contribute. I was raised, my mother, was a working mom herself. And I enjoy it. Like you said, Patty, I think I love my work and I love the travel industry. So I wanted to continue work, and I felt like I still had a lot to contribute. And I was very grateful because I actually had been with American Express very early in my career, and had kept in touch with my colleagues at American Express who were, back then. And so when they learned that I was looking for a new role, welcomed me back to American Express, and that I could actually do a virtual role. So I had been in, an office for whatever it was, 15 years. Now I could go back to I went to working at home, and I had a significant role, which I was blessed. There was a position available and open. But I appreciate that, that I was, became a candidate and got that job. So we'll forever be grateful to American Express that they stepped up and recognized as a working mom, I still had a lot to contribute. Maybe not in that as high of the role and big of the role, but I still had a lot to contribute. And I'll always be appreciative of that. So it's it's interesting, the culture. I think that's, one of the tips that I would have for women, is, look at the C-suite, look at the senior leadership. At CTM, our global COO, she's a young working mother of 4. We have a lot of senior leaders on our leadership team in significant roles. So it's a clue. And I believe you have a choice where you can work, and the culture of the organization is a big deal as you choose where you're going to spend the majority of your day,
I couldn't
So how
agree
about
more.
you? Would you, what looking back, what advice would you share?
Honestly, I wouldn't change on the broad strokes, wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I'd say honestly, a really blessed life. I grew up, had phenomenal parents, really, honestly, I've been blessed. Married a great guy who still puts up to me to this day. Got two healthy kids. We got a great extended family, and I absolutely love what I do, and I love the people I work with. And that does go to the whole culture piece that you mentioned. I think like really loving where you work and the people you work with is so important. And that's one thing I've always been, and I can see there are some folks I work with on the Zoom here today. I've always been somebody, and maybe I overshare, but I think it's important to bring like your whole self to work. That not everybody wants to, and that's okay. But to really build relationships with people, then when you go through something like the pandemic, like when you're in it together. So I've been very fortunate that way. What I would tell sort of my younger self is the whole thing of kind of enjoy the moment. there were a lot of things that were just a
Yeah.
blur.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember being in, I can remember being in labor with my son and somebody calling me about an employee relations issue. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's on me. Like, I took the call. So you just don't need to do those things. And I think though the other thing, and again, whether you're working mom, not mom, dad, whatever, is you're just the best, you're just the best you that you can be. And you can't judge yourself based on what somebody else's success looks like. Success can or cannot be career. It can be lots of things. It's whatever you define that's important.
I know, I
To
like that
you.
we were preparing for this, you talked about the path that the path that you choose to
Yeah, you
take
pick
maybe
the path,
different.
the path that's right, the path that's right for you. Because I do also think sometimes the grass is always a little bit greener, so
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that my particularly my oldest, my son has maintained the same group of friends from kindergarten right through high school. And the fact of the matter is, but you also get to make choices in work and or in life. And the fact that I work a lot and I'm very connected with my family, I don't have, because I'm like, I don't have a lot of friends that either I don't work with or I'm part of my extended family. There's just not, something has to give. So I'm not the one that's on every mother's group or community piece. Like, you just pick a couple of things. And sometimes I'd say to myself, wow, like, they go off and they do this, and there are women that I know that have these 15, 20 friends, and they're all doing something together each weekend. But then I'll talk to some of them and they'd say, wow, I would love to be able to actually get on a plane, get out of work, get away for a couple of days. So like the grass, sometimes I think can always be a little bit greener, and you
Yeah.
just have to follow and be happy with the path that you have.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Because I remember again talking about guilt or just, oh, I was missing out, on those things because the PTA things and all that, some of that. I think it is a good advice to, you have to sort of just, pick those that are most important to you. And the good news is that eventually you're an empty nester like I am now. And I know you're not quite there yet. and then you have all kinds of time. So it's been, it's interesting because we hadn't really talked about this as we were preparing for today, but I've been able to dial back up now. So because I took that time where I stepped back, which I'm sure a lot of others wouldn't say, wow, that was a step down, holy smokes. But anyway, it was. But now I've been able to dial back up and and which, because I'm an empty nester. So for all of you that have your young moms, know that this is a window of time. So, Dylan, when I was telling him about doing this webinar, that was his, I said, what was your resignation? And he said exactly what you said. Cherish those moments, Mom. That's what I would tell folks. That's what I learned. He learned that now. Hopefully he'll be getting married soon, but he, that's what he's learned is like, okay, I don't want to miss out on everything. I want to have those moments. And I think a lot of our young adults now, that's how they feel because they watched us give up so much. But back to the I guess hope, if you will, for the working moms on the phone or on the line right now, listening to us, is that eventually you are an empty nester. Eventually they go, and then you have all that time to do those things that enjoying those, be part of those groups. So it's just choose what you can and know that it's just a window of time. And so don't miss out, but yet there is hope for your freedom will come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think it was, one of the things we were going to talk about was just what do we want people to take away from today. And I think maybe that'll be good if we leave like maybe 10 or 15 minutes for the Q&A.
Yeah, let's absolutely do that. Do you want to start, Mary Ellen? What are your
I think it's just I think it's like what I said. It's just, find that thing that grounds you. For me, it was definitely my faith. And I'm grateful that I found that along the way. Because it helped me realize what was enough, and I think that I was enough. So I know that's kind of a deep thing, but it is, again, as a working mom, a lot of times we get left with that. We can have that feeling that we've not been enough to whoever that is, our spouse, the people we work with, our children. And so I feel like I found that through this journey, which then gave me confidence that I was on the exact path that like you mentioned earlier, that where I was supposed to be. And I could move forward with confidence and navigate it, because, there are definitely curveballs and ups and downs, but I guess, and having that perseverance, and grounding to steer through it, and just, and again, like you said, in the end, feel very, very grateful for the journey that it was and the people that I worked with. So, and I had a lot of good help, I have to say. I worked with some amazing leaders, but also the support team that I put around me. I mean, I had a fantastic, when Dylan was really little, I had a great nanny who he's still very close to today. Some of the staff I worked with, my support team, incredible, who are now, leaders. I see them often, having great careers. Just was dialoguing with one of them today, who's just started a new career. So it's amazing the connections that I've been able to keep, through all this. And I think it's maybe, again, like I said earlier, just having that authenticity with others, and like you said, just taking time to have a relationship with people that you're working with. So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it is try being kind to yourself, and you got to acknowledge the things that you have accomplished. And as I've always said, you can't keep up with the Joneses. You have to be you, right? And be happy with you. But I do think that there's something really important around building a network, and whatever network works for you. Some, like as I said, I'm very fortunate, or I have a very large extended family around, so that works for me. I rely on family. I have other friends who have really extensive networks of friends, right? So you got to figure out like what's the network that helps you. And I think the other thing on the work piece is you need to like surround yourself with positive people, but also with really strong talent. So the reason that I'm able to do my job and do it well is I try to hire people who frankly are better at me at
Exactly.
whatever the thing is, right? Don't be, particularly as women, like don't be intimidated by talent.
Exactly.
Embrace it. And I think that that's just something that's really important.
100%. Well, do we want to maybe?
Yeah, should we go to some of the?
Yeah, the Q&A. So let's see what we've got. Some good comments here. We'll start at the top. Let's see, from Katie. Hi, Katie. Our friend with Festive Road. Has anyone struggled with a partner who doesn't travel, but questions your need to travel often for work, and the partner is left more often with the kids? So since you're on the road today, Patty, how's that?
So that's my life. So my husband's an accountant with Fidelity Investments, and he started the same time that he started with Fidelity. Oh, actually he started with Fidelity in 1998. So he's been there 23 years. I've been at Amex 25. He's had 2 business trips. That's it. So
wow, he's
definitely had more on the kids. Another like sort of like little less, if I realize and he's been wonderful. The only thing, particularly when the kids were little, I was never, my mom used to always say to me, just spit it out, like, tell us really when you're going to be home. And I would do these things because I didn't want to upset the apple cart and say, oh, I think, I'll be able to take, let's say, I'll be home on Tuesday. Well, I probably knew deep down inside, I probably had to stay till Wednesday. And it took a while of then just really being realistic up front on what the work schedule would be and not waiting. Like, so we then was, this might sound silly, but it really worked for us in our relationship is we would sit down and try to look a month in advance. When did I think I would be traveling? And just set those expectations. And then there was sometimes, it's going to sound silly, but like, so Steve would always be home, my mom would come over and make him and the kids dinner and stuff. But I would just make sure that we made a commitment that when I would come home, that either I'd let him go out, that he would go out and do something, or would try to go out and grab a bite to eat after the kids went to bed. I might have been exhausted, but I had to just try to acknowledge that it was important for him too, to kind of get out of the house and not be in the house 24/7. But being realistic and honest about your schedule is really important.
And yeah, and setting that, yeah, that's a good idea. And communicating up front if you know
Right.
when you're going.
Instead of dripping the news.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How about you, Mary Ellen?
Yeah, well, I kind of, yeah, was, of course, I was a single mom. So, but the deal, my ex-husband and I, we've maintained a good relationship. And a lot of that was because we just wanted it to be right for Dylan. We put ourselves aside, I guess, if you will. So we did have to communicate in advance, because the deal was, if I went out of town, that Dylan stayed with him, because he didn't travel. His business was a local Dallas business and he didn't have to go on the road. So that was the deal. If I went away, Dylan would stay over there at his home. And so I think you're right, communication in advance, because I kind of had to, like, okay, here's the trips I've got coming up this month. And so as a result, that worked. We made that work. So let's see the next one from Betsy. Absolutely, I was on the road typically 9 days and then home for 2 to 4. I would get calls as early as 4:30 to 5 a.m. from my husband yelling at me and when I was going to stop traveling. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely, maybe now this is the benefits, the post-pandemic, right? There won't be as much, at least for a little while here, with moms will be more at home. Then they're going to be asking you when you're going, is probably what's going to end up happening. Yeah. I know that's my husband now. He's like, when aren't you going on a trip soon? Anyway, okay. From Holly, hi Holly, with American Express. My husband left the workforce when we had our daughter, so I could focus on my career, which involved very long days, commuting, and also times of travel. We thought it would last a few years, but 11 years later, he's still stay-at-home dad and therefore bears the brunt of most childcare. For us, as continues to work, we adjust as needed to make sure not one person gets burned out. So again, I mean, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Holly, because that's so real, what you just shared right there. And I think it says the communication, how important it is, and to talk about it. That's very healthy, and not talk about it. Anything else to add there, Patty? Or I know you know Holly very well.
Yes. No, I absolutely agree. It's tough, but you need to work it out. And again, you find the balance that's right for your family.
So let's see, Debbie Anachi, can you prioritize self-care with all the work and family priority or responsibilities and needs? How do you achieve self-care? I mean, this was a huge one for me, because that was, I'm definitely, I like to work, I like to exercise and work out. And so I calendared it to make sure I got it in. And when I traveled, even if it meant just a walk, getting out and walking, or made sure I packed those clothes. Because if I packed the clothes, then it really, made me feel like, okay, I brought my tennis shoes and my workout gear. I'm going to the gym. So for me, it was just, it's a mental thing, probably more for me, honestly, than a physical thing. So I definitely made priority for that. And once again, brought Dylan along with me where I could. So if it was the jogging stroller or, to the gym and the child care. So that was just, it was definitely a priority for me. And it still is. So.
Yeah. So you know what the heck, we're with 80 some odd of my closest friends. I'll take a risk and tell you actually what not to do in your life in terms of self-care. So I wasn't practicing much self-care, and I got myself in a really bad spot about 3.5, 4 years ago, where I had such bad insomnia, and so I couldn't sleep at night. And then I was having all kinds of issues. And then it was affecting me during the day. And I would get up in the morning just worrying about, am I going to go to sleep at night? And I got to the point one day I thought I was having a heart attack, and ended up in the emergency room. And it ended up like I was diagnosed with, I had issues with sleeping, but I also had problems with anxiety. And so that was like such a big wake up call. I can remember actually it was Halloween. And I was like, I don't have time for a heart attack. I got to get candy, right? It was just,
oh my gosh,
absolutely ridiculous. But it ended up, I look back now, but it was really scary. And I can remember the doctor saying to me, he's like, you've got one body and you've got one shot like at this. So you either fix this or you're like, kids aren't going to have a mom. And that was quite sobering. So I ended up then doing a lot of, I met with somebody who actually helped me with like techniques to sleep. And I've tried to be more specific of making sure that I am actually sleeping. And then even just thinking about like with anxiety of things that, which I never, it's funny, I just thought it was stress, but of techniques and how you deal with anxiety. And I've also tried to, now I'm very good about shutting off. It's not always the whole weekend, but a significant portion of the weekend, decompress and just kind of know those sort of triggers. But it is something that, I mean, it could happen to anyone, but there is a point where you do need to pay attention to your body and sort of see the signs you could end up in a bad spot. Not to be a downer, but I share that just to say. And I'm somebody who has, again, incredibly blessed in terms of my parents are around, everything else. But if you put so much on yourself, you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting you say that. I actually had that. I had that experience too, where I was having, it was actually around 9/11. Leading through that was, it was tough, horrendous actually. Just, being a leader at that time, definitely I went into a sleep deprived state. And, but I did invest in, I went to a sleep clinic, and they gave me the techniques exactly like you're saying. And I still use those to this day. There was some meds involved. And then I was able to, get off that. And then, but I still use the techniques of, actually there was some tapes that they made for me. And, but yeah, it is, when those things start happening to you, pay attention, especially on the sleep side. So I know we want to kind of come down. Let's see, we've got one more from Christian, who I work with at CTM. My husband works very light part-time work, no travel, so I could focus on my career. As understanding and supportive as he is, there have absolutely been times when he definitely resents my need and the degree I've had to travel over the years. So I guess I would just say, pay attention to that. I mean, it was definitely part of my divorce, so, because I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't really acknowledge how I was feeling and just kept on keeping on. So I think the communication we talked about earlier, and finding those things that, like Patty was saying, where you can have your time together. But for sure, it's important to pay attention to, for sure, and talk about it. So yeah, anything you want to
No, I
say
think,
here?
yeah, absolutely. And on all of these things, still in the end of the day, and try to tell my team as well, and I mean it, you know, we have a job to do, we're all committed, but you got to be committed to yourself and be committed to
Yeah.
the things that are important to you. And the crisis du jour in work, I look back on some of those things now and you don't even remember actually what they were about, but you do remember
Exactly.
people that are important to you in your life.
Yeah.
So we should probably
So
get to the, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
we'll do Lisa, you want to do the pictures, right? We thought it would be kind of fun to close with some we've talked about our families and who they, what they were then and what they are now. So this one here is a picture of Dylan in a suitcase. So he was 1 year old in this photo, and on a trip. Actually, it was an American Airlines ski event. We were taking customers to a ski event, and he went along with us. And that was just, an example, because I'm telling you, he went all over the place with me. So that's kind of a fun one. And then, but now Dylan is a B2B sales executive for Staples. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He's in sales and lives in Houston. And here is the blended family that I talked about. So you see Dylan on the left, and now they all have partners and their significant others. So we've got Ivy in the pink, and Haley there in the middle next to me, and Griffin, who's in the green all the way over on the right there. Those are our kids with their family. So definitely, I have my own little mentoring group going right here at home. So yeah, we have a lot of fun together. It's great. And Patty?
Yeah, so this is Kathleen and Tommy. They're just I'm really, again, blessed. They're great kids. Those who work with me probably hear more about them than they even want to, but they're such a part of my life. And then the next one will show you, yes, Tommy's 17, he's going into a senior year at high school. So we're starting looking at colleges. And Kathleen's 14, she's going to be 15 on my husband's birthday. So they say when you give your husband a child on his birthday, it's hard to ever top that and whatever. So but she'll be 15 this weekend, and she's a pleasure as well. It gives me a little bit of run for my money, but she keeps things interesting.
Gorgeous kids, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got some other programming coming up that we wanted to put up here on the screen for you, and know that these will be shared on the GBTA website and the social media channels for GBTA and WINiT. So again, we really appreciate you joining us and taking your time with us today, and hopefully you took away some good lessons learned from Patty and I.
Thank you all so much.
So thank you.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of the summer and stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.